This is Lisa Tucker, host of The Book Cover, which showcases local literary personalities. So listen to The Book Cover on the borderline. And remember, don't judge a book by its cover. Hi, you're listening to The Book Cover. I am Lisa Tucker, and we are on the borderline. Today I have professor, author, travel guy, Tony Robinson Smith. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you very much.
Now, you are obviously, from your accent, you are not local to our area originally. Tell me where you came from.
Yes, well, I come from England, and arrived in Canada in 1999, so I've been here 25 years now. So maybe I'll have to celebrate that in some way. Maybe jump in Lake Superior and
polar bear swim.
Yes, there you go.
That's a good celebration.
I like to do things on big events, like big times of life, like the 50th birthday or the 40th, or going to a new place. I just celebrated my 60th birthday by running the Conquer the Crater ultra marathon just south of Sudbury, which is extremely painful. Something I will never do again.
That's 100
on these old legs. But what I needed there is what you just suggested: is a good dunk in Lake Superior and chilling those legs after some hot, painful brutality.
Now, an ultra is 100.
No, this was a full marathon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wish I could do an ultra, but not at my age.
Very many people can't do it at any age. So, well, you're very enterprising, I'll tell you.
I wouldn't say that. I just enjoy, like you, being outdoors, and it's great to be in a forest setting in Canada, and this has been one of the drivers of my travels as well, to be in wildernesses and to spend time in nature, observing and just being active in nature.
Well, that's sort of not why we're here, but I mean, that's our natural habitat, is the nature and the forests, and it's not natural for us to be in a stone building.
Absolutely.
In front of a electronic whatever. And you mentioned how you're not very tech, but usually the people who aren't techie are outdoorsy.
Yeah. There's loads of people walking around with cell phones and they're on park trails.
Don't even open their eyes when there's a beautiful bird.
Well, that surprises me. Yes.
Yes.
But such is the the arresting appeal of cell phones.
Yes.
There are a lot of people, sadly, I suppose, are in a kind of trance.
I hope that when the pendulum swings, I hope that it swings back to nature. I myself, of course, I'm a huge techie, but I can separate.
Yeah, that's right. You can achieve balance in your life.
Thank goodness.
There's a time to stare into a screen, the time to be, bird watching.
Yes, I love it. So your first book, now correct me if I'm wrong, back in 6 years?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so which came first, the travel or the book?
Very much the travel.
Okay, so tell me what instigated you and what the travel was.
Okay, so my first book tells the narrative of one circuit of the earth that I made in the 1990s, from England to England, westbound around the earth without using aircraft, through 54 countries and crossing 3 oceans. And I was just interested in exploring and discovering as much as possible over an extended period, and trying to touch on every continent. Wow. Which I succeeded in doing, with the exception of Antarctica. So, and then I came back. I was an avid journal keeper, and I had lots of journals that I sent home, and they were stacked up in England, and I got hold of those, and I'd also met my wife-to-be on that journey.
Oh, wow.
So I emigrated to Canada, and took the journals with me, and started to work on my first book.
And your wife is Canadian?
She is. She's from Montreal, Quebec.
Is she Française?
She is.
Nice.
Yeah, and
okay.
bilingual. Yeah.
Very nice. And where did you meet her? Like, where on your travels?
Right. Okay. So one section of my journey was a cycle across Canada, from Halifax to Tofino, Victoria Island, and I met her in Montreal. I was traveling at that time with another cyclist who had a friend to stay with in Montreal. I didn't know anybody. And so we ended up looking up that friend, and there were two girls living together, and I guess we kind of hit it off.
She was the roommate.
Yeah, she was the roommate. Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. And then we parted, having spent a few days together. I parted for 2 years, and I continued on my Transcan cycle, and then from there cycled down into the States and sailed out of San Diego, across the Pacific Ocean to ultimately to Japan, a 7-month voyage. And then having worked there for a little bit, I moved to China, and we were keeping up correspondence. So I said to her, like, if you're at a loose end, then we could do some travel together. And she, kind of put that off for a while because she was studying for a master's degree. And ultimately she said, like, yes, this is something I'd like to do. And she came and joined me in Beijing, and we traveled together through China and Southeast Asia and down into Indonesia.
What a leap of faith.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't know how she survived. But, the woman deserves a medal, not least of all for being married to me afterwards, like for just tolerating me for an entire year of travel, and some of it was pretty hard.
Because you didn't do this in luxury.
No. It's all like no flying, so it's all on the ground stuff.
Yeah,
and part camping? Of that was by canoe.
Camping or
yeah. I was carrying a tent, and but in Asia, large parts of Asia, you don't need to camp. There are a lot of cheap guest houses around. In Indonesia, they're called losmen, and they're little shacks, and they don't cost much to stay. And as I was just saying, like, we traveled by canoe, so we weren't using public transport. We bought an outrigger fishing canoe, and tracked the coastlines of Java, Bali, Sumbawa, Lombok, Komodo, and Rinca. Wow. And that was 2,000 kilometers by canoe, local fishing canoe. And that took, with kind of like the preamble to getting the boat and doing a bit of training, it was about half a year.
Wow. So on this.
So by the end of that, we kind of liked each
other.
You got to know each other pretty intimately.
Yeah, I guess.
Because the true test of a relationship is through undergoing hardship together.
Absolutely.
And there's some very testing moments. And so we were still okay at the end of that, not at each other's throats. And she flew home, and then I travelled on for about a year and a half, just getting by land and sea back from Indonesia to England, and then I just dropped my bag, repacked another one, and immigrated here.
Wow.
Started a new life.
It's amazing. Well, you said it's a hardship to travel together. My husband and I often watch The Amazing Race, and I always say how we'd finish The Amazing Race and go straight to the divorce attorney because we would not be able to take it. So that's an accomplishment in itself.
Yeah, I was lucky.
Right?
Find the right partner.
I don't know if luck has anything to do with it. It's a lot of hard work.
Believe in fate.
Yeah, there's a lot of hard work though.
Yeah, and a lot of work, that's true.
Yeah. So when you were writing the journals and then sending them home, did you know this was going to be a book, or at what point in travel, in doing the journals, and at what point did you know that there was a book in these journals?
Not until it really was over. I suspected that there'd be a good story to tell, and I wanted my parents to share a bit in my adventures, so that's why I sent the journals home. It wasn't until I actually arrived in Canada that I thought that maybe with a little bit of education in creative writing, I might be able to come up with some chapters from my journals and create a book.
Right.
So I went. I spent a couple of years, 3 years in fact, in Montreal teaching, and then shifted to Fredericton, New Brunswick, and did a master's program in creative writing. So there was like the education, the tuition I needed to understand how to turn raw journals into a publishable book.
Yeah, but it sounds like you were a writer before you even were educated.
Yeah, formally. So I have a pretty kind of standard English leaning education, meaning English literature. I did an English undergrad degree.
Yeah.
So I'd read quite a bit before even starting travels.
Right.
So I was building on that, I guess. And high school, my favourite subjects were English and art.
Same.
Yeah. Okay. So we're artsy
There's
people.
no right answer in English.
Yeah,
Sorry, there's
I like
no
that.
wrong answer. There's just an answer, and if you can back up the answer, you're golden.
Yeah. That's right. That's true. And I tell my students that these days is that whatever you say, based on the literature that you're reading, should be supported with evidence.
That's right.
And then you're not wrong.
That's right.
As long as you support it with evidence, then it's a perspective.
Absolutely.
And that's what you want.
Yes, and everybody's perspective is different.
There you go.
So you must get a lot of different perspectives on the same book. Like, I'm sure you have a curriculum where you teach the same books, but you must, when you get a student that has this perspective that you haven't seen before, that must be exciting.
Oh, it's exhilarating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I teach.
Yeah, that's beautiful. If I were ever to be a teacher,
yeah,
that would be exhilarating for me too, because
absolutely.
Oh my goodness, you are actually learning from the student.
Yeah, and they pay me for that.
Right? How lucky.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
No, I want to talk about your second book.
Yeah, sure.
The Dragon Run. So now this is crazy to me. So you did a 578 kilometer run.
Yeah.
In Bhutan.
Yeah, through the Himalayas.
How long did that take you?
A month.
Wow.
I mean, you can do that kind of distance regardless of terrain in much less. But that wasn't the point. We were taking 10 of our students from the college where we were teaching with us, and they weren't really runners. And we were raising money en route for a foundation over there that was raising money to help village kids go to school. So we were stopping off a lot and, going around with the hat.
Yes. And were media aware of what you were doing?
Yeah. They made a little video of it, and it was reported regularly on their news.
Very nice.
I was interviewed here a couple of times at distance as well. Shift, I think it was, CBC.
And how much did you raise, do you know?
About 20,000 Canadian dollars. That's a lot in Bhutanese terms.
Right.
We sent about 350 kids to school.
Wow.
Who from villages who wouldn't, for a year, who wouldn't otherwise have had the opportunity.
Wow, how amazing. And you're very active person. Like, do you run on a daily basis?
No. My aging joints won't allow that. I tend to kind of switch run, bike, and then...
Biking is much nicer on your joints.
It is, yeah, you're supported. And then in holiday times, I like to do a bit of kayaking and canoeing, swimming.
Well, you're in the right area now.
Absolutely, yeah.
You've got it all.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Now, tell me about, when I was reading the summaries for your books, The Dragon Run, it said 2 Canadians, 10 students, and a stray dog.
Yeah.
Where does the stray dog come in?
Right, okay. So that wasn't planned. I think day 2 of our run, we entered a small town in eastern Bhutan called Tashigang. And we were camping there that night in the school, sleeping out on the school floors. Then got up the next day, and we were running out of Tashigang towards our next, destination, and we realized that we had an extra runner, and there are a lot of stray dogs around in Bhutan, and usually they'll chase you and be with you for a bit, and then they'll buzz off. But this one ran with us for, I don't know what we did that day, 25 kilometers, something like that. It was still with us. And so we kind of fed it and then thought about like shooing it away back to where it came from. But it's a stray, right? So it doesn't really come from anywhere.
So no home.
Right. So it seemed to want to stay. So we tried it on the next day and the next, and it just like kept jogging along, and it became a kind of mascot, a kind of source of inspiration for our student runners who were a little kind of trepidatious about whether they could survive running through the Himalayas.
Sure.
But a little dog, and
Yeah.
it's a quite small dog with short legs. There's a picture of it in that book. Kept going, and even it got injured at one point, but then recovered and kept running. So it ran right across that country.
Did you name the dog?
Yeah, it's called Yana.
Yana, and what does that mean?
Good question.
It's a Bhutanese
yeah.
name.
So we were running for the Tarayana Foundation.
Oh, okay.
And Tara, that part of the word refers to a goddess, kind of like the emblematic of the foundation. And then Yana was the second part of that name. So we just kind of borrowed that.
And then when you finished running, you've done your 578 kilometers, which is insane. Was the dog still with you right to the end?
Yeah. And the dog met the Queen of Bhutan, as we all did. So we were received into the capital city by the Queen of Bhutan and the princess. And this was the point in which we, and the Tarayana Foundation, that we passed over our box of collected Nultrum, which is the local currency of Bhutan. And, that was the moment. And yeah, it was a wonderful kind of finish to a pretty long and sweaty run.
Wow. And so I know that when you meet the Queen of England, there's, you're schooled on all these protocols.
Yeah.
And you being English, you know this. Were there protocols to meeting the Queen of Bhutan?
Yeah, and one of which I broke. Generally speaking, you have to bow low and you breathe into the sleeve of your go or kira. These are the national costumes of men and women in Bhutan. So they have long baggy sleeves, and you just kind of breathe into the sleeve and bow. You do not eyeball royalty in Bhutan, and she was kind of like giving us ceremonial silk scarves and putting them over our necks. So all that went pretty well. Like I was wearing my typical kind of Canadian running gear, so I didn't have a sleeve to breathe into. But nevertheless, I just kept my eyes on the ground. But the faux pas that I made was it was my job to pass over the donations that we'd received to Tarayana Foundation. But I almost gave it to the Queen, which she doesn't need to kind of like wrestle with a big box. It's a big, tired, battered cardboard box.
Dirty.
Yeah, stuffed with
dirty money.
That's right. There you go. And that needed to go to somebody else. So there was a little pause, and then somebody like whisked over and took it out of my hands.
Wow, how exciting! And your now wife, was with you on that trip.
Yeah. She's a runner too.
Oh, she is. Well, thank goodness, because that would have been a problem.
Yeah, she was the only woman who did it. And,
wow! So everybody, the students were all
that's
male.
Right. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
And so she played a very, very important role in just like looking after them with a female touch, if you like. They got injured. They got tired. They got despondent, and she mothered them a bit and helped them through. And we didn't lose any on the roadside.
Thank goodness. How was the altitude?
So so you're going up over 5 significant mountain chains, but there are saddles, and so the highest would be about 12 or 13,000 feet.
Okay, so
so there are long climbs, and eventually you reach this summit, which is kind of swaddled in Buddhist prayer flags. It's very windy up there. Sometimes there's snow, and then you've reached there, and you're kind of happy. And then it's a long, snaky path down, and then you end up typically at a river, and you cross that, and you go climb the next mountain chain. Yeah.
Now, did you do journals, or did you write after the trip?
Same thing. Yeah, we had a support bus, so I didn't have to like run with a journal under my arm.
That's nice.
Usually I'd have some paper stuffed down my pants and a pen, just like because I wanted to record. I like to record fairly close to the experience and not trying to leave it for a few days.
Well, you get the emotion that way.
You do. That's exactly right. But also, you get into the habit of noticing things, how things look at the particular time that you experience them, and there may be a quality of light there, or it may be, a certain nature encounter that you have that seems significant, or it might be a conversation that you want to record quickly, having with, say, a fellow runner.
Sure.
With Nadia, my wife.
Now, did the 10 students, they all speak English?
Yeah. So the language of education over in Bhutan is English.
Okay.
So they spoke English.
And you were okay traveling because most of the people spoke English?
Yeah. In some the remoter regions of Bhutan, that's not the case. The national language is Dzongkha, and that's pretty widely spoken. But there are other languages as well. The language of the East is Shachop. We got to know little bits of these.
Sure.
But generally speaking, when we are communicating with our students, or with people in our college, or with people of influence in towns, then we could communicate in English.
Very nice. That must make so much the difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just trying to get along and.
Yeah. But it's I found on all my travels that learning a bit of the local language really helps to break down barriers.
It's respectful.
Yeah, absolutely. And generally speaking, people appreciate the effort.
Absolutely.
However
even if
bad
you
your
murder
pronunciation
it.
might be.
That's right.
Yeah.
And now your latest book, this just came, did this just come out this year?
Yeah,
Yes.
a couple of months ago.
Right, and it's called Of Canoes and Crocodiles. And this is about your travels in Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, another kind of remote to here, remote region of the world. So we're down near Australia in Papua New Guinea, the eastern half of the island of New Guinea, for some canoeing.
Just now, why did you pick there?
Okay, so I was mentioning to you before how Nadia and I had canoed in a fishing canoe in Indonesia, and one of the things that we noticed by doing that is we really got to meet local people, and we were well off the beaten trail, and we learned a little bit of Malay, and the stops that we made and those contacts were what we remember most. They led to rewarding experiences. You really get a sense of an authentic, in this case, Indonesian life. And so we wanted to do something similar. Back in Indonesia, we'd been at sea, tracking coast, but we thought that there'd be also great potential in canoeing down a jungle river.
Of course.
Yeah. So there are loads of opportunities around the earth to do that. We're inclined towards Asia, and we looked first at Borneo. But I discovered through research that Borneo tends to be quite logged.
Okay.
So there's a lot of kind of like human interference, if you like, with their rainforests.
Okay.
And the planting of palm oil, commercial palm oil. So we looked again and a little further east and came up with the second largest island on Earth, New Guinea. And we noticed that there were long rivers on both the Indonesian side and on the Papua New Guinean side. So we started on the Indonesian side, and it just didn't seem to be a river that was quite what we wanted. And then we switched to Papua New Guinea. And there were two choices. One was the Fly River, which is a north-south river, stretches kind of north-south across that part of the island. And then there's the Sepik, which begins in the central mountains, snakes into Indonesia briefly, and then stretches across the north part of the country, from the Indonesian border to the Bismarck Sea. And so we chose that one.
Wow. It's almost like throwing darts at a map. I love it. But then you research.
Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about that. So we're interested in canoeing. We've become interested in Papua New Guinea, and then reading memoirs about experiences there. A couple of them are mentioning birds of paradise. I'm intrigued. We're bird watchers. I do a little research on that. Found that the birds of paradise are endemic to New Guinea, so that is the place to go and see them. So if you've seen any wildlife documentaries like Planet Earth, David Attenborough, that kind of thing, you'll see these remarkable birds, remarkable both in plumage and in behaviour, courtship behaviour especially. And so we wanted to see that in the flesh, so to speak.
And just the two of you went?
Yeah.
With your journals?
If you like, yeah.
Yeah.
By that time, I was firmly in that habit.
Yes.
I tend to just pick up, like high school
workbooks,
jotting pads.
Yeah.
They're just simple things.
Yeah.
There's nothing dressy about them.
Well, there really couldn't be. You're out and kind of roughing it.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't take this fancy thing with a hardback. I just pick up whatever's local.
Right.
And yes, so we were doing that, and we got lucky. Quite often on travel, on journeys, you want to do something which is a little kind of unusual, but you suspect is possible. You put yourself into the place where that can happen, and you ask around, and you have to be patient, but quite often you become aware of an opportunity, and that's what happened for us.
Wow.
We crossed the border from Indonesia and Papua to Papua New Guinea at Vanimo. That's where the Pope is at the moment, actually, on tour, and fell into the company of a school teacher with a school in the interior, not far from the banks of the Sepik. And we asked him whether we could ride in his pickup to go there, and he said yes. Could we explain what we wanted to do? He found an intriguing project. He said maybe a couple of my kids could go with you.
Oh.
Weren't too sure about that, but again got lucky, because at his school, the school was just breaking up for the Easter vacation, and the kids were going in all directions, but some were had families on the Sepik, in villages on the Sepik. And so he packed us into a pickup truck to go along a rough road to a tributary of the Sepik, and told his kids, like, I say kids, they're like 20 years old. They were in high school, but high school for them goes to a later age, 19, 20, I guess. They were pretty fit.
They were adults.
Guys.
They were basically adults. Yeah.
He said, like, help them find a canoe.
Wow.
And so we joined a little tributary called the Dio, and they helped us to communicate with the villagers, and we waited a while. I said, you have to be patient, right? And the guy comes along in this hollowed out tree trunk, and that's what
that was your canoe.
That was the canoe. Yeah. So there's nothing fancy about them. They're just trees that have been cut down, cut in half, hollowed out, and that's your canoe.
Well, that's what the first canoes were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you did it in the rawest form.
Yeah.
Rawest way you could.
Yeah, there were no choices. Everybody travels that way.
Wow.
And again, like, if you're traveling the local way, that helps you to be in touch with the local people.
Sure.
If I brought some kind of fancy fiberglass thing or a Canadian prospector canoe along, then
you would have been snubbed.
You're putting up barriers.
Yeah.
So and we bought that. There was a problem though, because it's very tippy.
Yeah.
And we had 1,000 kilometers to paddle, so we had to come up with some kind of solution. Papua New Guineans paddle standing, and so it's a balancing act. They have,
wow.
Their paddles are these kind of great massive things with no handles. They're 8 foot tall and big spades kind of thing. And they balance on the stern of these tree trunks, if you like, dugouts, and they can do that well. But we couldn't see ourselves doing that. It's a great big muddy river, and we just like end up in it. There's crocodile infested with piranha as well.
Beautiful.
So we were concerned about that, and so we talked to our companions from the high school about that, and they came up with a solution.
And
the solution was, you'll read about it at the start of the book, but they chop down. They typically Papuans carry machetes that are about this long, and they chop down a couple of branches, and then went off to the banks of the tributary and cut down some grasses, sugarcane, and they teased out through cutting the hardy fibers inside the sugarcane. Use these to lash the sticks that they'd cut down across two of these tree trunk canoes, and so they bound them together to make a raft. That's right, 2-hulled raft.
Very cool.
Yeah. And so we were able to stand and paddle on that vessel. Yeah.
So, other than the crocs and the piranha, in any of your the 3 books, the experiences, did you ever feel unsafe? Like, was there ever a moment you thought, "Wow, that could have gone badly"?
Yeah. There's a lot of time spent traveling for me out in these places, and inevitably you get into a fix from time to time, a sticky moment. Actually, the crocodile thing wasn't an issue because it was post-rainy season and they'd retreated into the swamps. Piranhas weren't the kind that take a lump out of you, so we were eating them rather than them eating us.
Oh, that was a good turn of events.
Absolutely. I was relieved about that.
Yeah.
But Papua New Guinea doesn't see many tourists or travellers because it's a dangerous place. There's a lot of banditry, and this applied to the river as well. Bandits over there are called rascals, Raskols. And there was a stretch of the river. We got closer and closer to it, and we were warned again that this was a rascal area. And so...
you weren't carrying anything of value.
Well, everything's of value when you're a Canadian traveling in a developing country. I mean, we're talking here about being in the company of tribes with bows and arrows and minimal clothing and stuff.
Okay.
Stick shelters, no electricity. It's pretty elemental.
Wow.
So when they see you, they see all the things that you're carrying as well. Yeah. Not that we had any difficulty because of that, but
scary times.
Well, yeah. I mean, you just have to be aware of that, and of course we paid for people to accompany us and made sure that we hired at the proper price, so did not cheat anybody.
Right.
And that's very important. You strike up good relations.
Respect, yes.
Yeah.
Again, yeah.
And you don't flaunt any of your goodies.
Yeah.
Keep things tucked away.
Wow.
And just tell them, why you're there. You're there to learn.
Yeah.
And try and find out something, and usually people, treat you well.
Now, you've got the 3 books. They are all published by the University of Alberta Press.
Actually not. The first one is Goose Lane Editions in Fredericton.
Okay.
The second 2 are by the University of Alberta Press.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where can your 3 books be purchased?
Okay, so you can go to any of the online options.
Amazon, Indigo, Chapters,
Yeah. I'm just about to go and do a stint in Toronto, persuading people to love crocodiles by buying my book.
Okay.
At the 3 big Indigos there. I don't know if there are copies down in Coles here, but most people are shopping online, I find, these days.
Yes, you're right.
These books are easy to get.
Yeah.
You go straight to the publisher and see what the options are.
University of Alberta. Yeah. So the 3 books are, well, let me get this straight. Back in 6 years.
Yep.
That's the Bhutan.
No, that's the Around the World.
Sorry, that's
it took
around
6 years to do, you see. Back in 6 years it was a 6-year journey.
Got it. Jeez, there's just so many travels. The Dragon Run was Bhutan.
Yes, that's right.
And then of Canoes and Crocodiles, that is Papua New Guinea.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, geez, thank you so much for coming on the show. You definitely weren't boring.
Oh, thank you.
And you definitely don't live a boring life.
Well, right now I'm pretty kind of like
wow,
living a regular existence with a I shave and wear a collar to work, and
yeah, but how nice you've got all these things that you've done that you
and also I don't regard these things as belonging to the past. Like, we're always kind of looking
Absolutely.
for chapters of life.
Yes.
I think a lot of people believe that life is kind of one shot. You're something, and you do that for your active years, and there are kind of conventional places to go and relax while you're not doing that thing. But I think you can also take the view that if you're fortunate enough, I don't have children, if you're fortunate enough to have reasonable mobility, and that I'm privileged as well, I have enough money to do these things,
Yes.
then you can go and live in the Himalayas for a while.
Yes.
You can go and spend half a year looking for birds of paradise and bowerbirds on the island of New Guinea. You can cycle across Australia, or you can sail across the Pacific Ocean if you've got on a little yacht, and if you've got 7 months, and then you come back and you pick up again, and all those experiences can be part of the rich tapestry of your life.
Absolutely. You're not the same person after.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You change as a person after every travel.
Yeah, I don't kind of believe that. I think you're intrinsically the same person.
You think so?
I think you take on new experiences that colour your personality and add to your knowledge.
Agreed.
And in subtle ways shift how you think.
Agreed.
So let's take an example. If you're complaining because it's a rainy day, and I bike to work, I could complain about getting wet on my way to work, but then I can remember also that while we were paddling our dugout canoes, tree trunk canoes, that the tropical storm came and filled us with water, and we sunk and lost the canoe. So that's a chapter in there.
Right.
And then you can have a bit of a different view or a perspective on what rain is,
Yeah.
and how much it affects you. I'll do the 15-minute cycle to work in a raincoat, shake off the raincoat and go about my day. It hasn't touched me at all, really.
You're not at the bottom of a river.
Exactly, yeah, nor is my boat or my bike.
That's right. Wow.
So, it's good for that. It teaches you things that influence the way that you continue to behave. It gives you perspectives on how to think about life.
Sure. Well, Tony Robinson Smith, thank you so much for coming on. This has been great. If you can pick up, if you love adventure and you love travel, this is a good way of sort of getting a little taste of a lot of things. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Tony. You've been listening to The Book Cover. I'm Lisa Tucker, and you're listening on The Borderline. Don't forget, don't judge a book by its cover.
My name is Tony Robinson Smith. I'm a assistant professor at Algoma University and an author. I have 3 books. The first is called Back in 6 Years, about travelling around the world without using aircraft. The second, The Dragon Run, about a couple of years spent in Bhutan and running across that country. And most recently, Of Canoes and Crocodiles, about paddling local dugouts down the Sepik in Papua New Guinea. These books are available at any online vendor, and they'll also be available at bookstores. Be sure to listen to Lisa Tucker on The Book Cover podcast. This is available at the Borderline Radio.